that's fine tonight. Just check in tomorrow morning, anytime after 8 o'clock, and you'll get your name tag and all the special gifts that we have for you. Members of the steering committee, please stand up. Janell, Amely, Conrad Armstrong, Diane Bissell, Jess Pomeroy, Sarah Shore, and Chris Gates. And our senior advisors, Bob Armstrong, McDowell, and Ann Williams. The advisors have helped us in this time of transition from the founding committee into a new generation who are getting their feet wet in this puzzle parlay and will be taking it on forward into the future. So I thank all of them. I kind of keep the meetings in an organized fashion. We do everything by Zoom. And they do all of the work. So thank them, not me.
Thank you, Roz.
We are all volunteers. No one gets paid to work on organizing the puzzle parlay. But it is a rewarding job when you see so many of you gathered, so many people here for the first time. And I just hope that you all enjoy the work that we put into it. Over the next few days, you will have the opportunity to experience many aspects of the wonderful world of wooden jigsaw puzzles. The program includes history, production, marketing, innovative design. Our partnership with the Strong Museum is outstanding, and I hope all of you will visit the Strong and take advantage of their reduced admission rate for anybody attending the Parley. Just show your badge, and you will get the reduced rate. We could not put on this Parley without the support of sponsors. They are listed in your program and will be featured on slides and in shows between sessions. The primary support came from Elms, Par Puzzles, Lazels, MGC, Huffnagel, and Stumpcraft, and there were more beyond that group, but please thank all of them. Throughout the weekend, their support helped keep your registration costs low or manageable. Another group I would like to thank are our volunteers who have helped with tasks leading up to the Parley and will keep things running smoothly throughout the weekend. There are so many volunteers, I would hate to try to name them all and miss someone, so just know that we thank all of you for putting in a few hours at the registration table, helping clean up after workshops, helping the AV team, so thank you all. As you know, there have been widespread travel delays for some people both yesterday and today, and we may have to adjust our schedule slightly tomorrow, but we will generally keep on track with the program that's printed in the booklet. We'll start tomorrow morning with a welcome from Bob Armstrong at 9 o'clock. And then throughout the day, there will be many sessions, but remember there will be raffle tickets on sale all day long. And thanks to everyone who donated items to the raffle. All raffle proceeds go to the Armstrong Education Grant Program. And we use that money to help bring new people to the Parley, supporting them with a little bit of financial help. The more raffle tickets you buy, the more we can help next year, the next Parley group. Table sales, going to happen over in that part of the room, will take place between 12:30 and 4 o'clock tomorrow. We ask that you refrain from trying any sales transactions outside of that time, and it can be very distracting to someone giving a presentation if there are folks milling around and trying to work to see the sales items. So try to keep that between the 12:30 and 4 o'clock. In your name tag, you have a colored piece of paper, and that is your ballot on which you will cast your vote for the best in show in the first row of first table here, and then the Puzzler's Choice Award. The spaces for both ballots are on one piece of paper. You'll put those into the ballot box, and the results will be counted tomorrow before dinner and announced after dinner. So I'm about ready to turn this over to our wonderful evening presentation about the Pagey Elliott Puzzle Exchange. But first, be sure to make new friends, puzzle together until 1 a.m., and let us know if we can help you in any way. Terra Rodgers is one of our volunteers who has spent many hours putting together the Pagey Elliott Puzzle Exchange. Terra is the owner of Chestnut and Hemlock Puzzle Business. Loves cutting diabolical puzzles with small pieces that push the expectations of what a wooden puzzle can be. She collects pastime puzzles and is a co-founder of the newly organized Puzzle Jam South, which I hear many of you did attend last year. So I'm going to turn this over to Kayla.
So I did the exchange in 2022. It was a fabulous experience. I told them I could either organize it or participate this year. And so I am organizing and not participating. I never had the opportunity to meet Pagey, but I heard wonderful stories about her. She was one of the founders of the Parley 30 years ago, and she loved to teach and share about making puzzles. I've heard stories that if you went to visit, she got you on the saw. If you didn't want to get on the saw, she still encouraged you to get on the saw. There was a great anecdote that Melinda shared with me earlier about when Melinda was learning to cut. She had gotten some cheap prints and some cheap wood, and went and was really excited and was like, "Pagey, look what I got." And Pagey's like, "Yeah, great, but don't skimp on quality. It's important." And I think that's one thing that these exchange puzzles that we've got over here don't skimp on, is quality. There are a number of cutters this year that are really showcasing Pagey's legacy. Mark Cappitella he'll share his own story, but his puzzle is a photo that he took when visiting with Pagey. And then Brennan, who is not able to be here because of plane delays, she had not touched a saw until Parley last 2 years ago. So when I give her talk, I'll talk about what she did. But so that is all. We're going to go through all of everybody's very short presentation. Make sure you vote. Terri's puzzle will not be here because she is overnighting it. It will be here hopefully at 9 o'clock in the morning. If you want to vote on hers, but you'll see her pictures. But the first person we've got up is Janell, Amely, my puzzle partner.
As you know, my name is Janell, and I cut a puzzle called Luminous Ocean Dance. It was going to be a different puzzle completely, but I ran into a couple snags, and I was like, okay, I need plan B. Plan A will still be shown in the show and tell, so now we can go to plan B.
You got a clicker, or I can do it for you.
No?
There you
Dang
go.
it. Yeah, so I saw a cathedral window piece of artwork on Instagram and was like, ooh, that would make a good puzzle. Like, how many puzzle makers, like, raise your hand when you see that. You're like, that'll make a good puzzle. And went back to my roots of acrylic puzzles with hand-dyed alcohol ink coloring. And this time, my new thing was filling the engraved. So these are all laser cut. All the parts are laser cut. And I filled the engraved with a different color, so it would really stand out. Because I noticed that once I cut it, you can hardly even see the actual jellyfish that are supposed to be dancing on the image. So the way that it is set up is that this is basically its own stand. It's set up so it's a display piece. Yes, I should change these things. Oh, right here.
Press the right button.
It's the right button.
There we go.
Yeah, so this is, I dyed it when it's a full sheet of material that's about 12 by 18 inches. And cut it out, put coloring on. Gonna put a chip in there. Little detail photo of my signature piece, which you guys will see in Anne's little booklet if you bought that. And puzzle by itself. And the actual stand up. So it's like, put it on your puzzle bookcase display type of thing. And the next one is Terra doing Terry's presentation.
So just pretend like I'm tall now. My name is Terri. So Terri selected a local artist to do her image for her puzzle. As I mentioned, Terri had not really touched the saw. My understanding is she had not really touched anything other than maybe an electric drill before the glass Parley in terms of equipment. But she took the class and fell in love with it. I think she was looking for a saw before she even left and went back home. She is still experimenting with different ways of cutting. Many of these were cut as one continuous line through the whole puzzle, and then she cut it into pieces beyond that. She was a little overwhelmed with the idea of doing the exchange, but she's really glad she did it. And I really think that Terri is a great example of Pagey's legacy, because everybody who comes to visit her, she's like, oh, don't you want to play on the saw? Don't you want to play on the saw? Let me show you. So she's been teaching all of her cousins and nephews how to cut on the saw. So she's doing a great job. So there's her finished puzzle, the box. The figure piece that she is developing is the dog with a little spiky tail. I'm guessing it's based on her dog. Now, you pretend like I'm Chaz. So pretend like I'm tall, and I have a deep voice.
And you hold the phone like 2 inches away from your face.
Right, so I'm also doing a Zoom call, you know, and
Yeah.
I forget how to turn on the button.
We love Chaz.
He is fabulous, and he does wonderful veneer work. So, Chaz sent me something to read, so I'm going to read and hopefully click the button at the right time. He says that all of his puzzles are two-sided, usually with veneer on both sides. Just so you know, Chaz is a trained carpenter first, and this is like a second career, a hobby for him. Leaves are definitely a recurring theme. One of his puzzles laid on the table is hiding half the real estate, because half the image is on the back side. He decided to hang the puzzle with the container's base. A second challenge was irregular edges and dropouts. Because of the two-sided thing, he needed a right-hand pattern and a matching left-hand pattern so that many points would align side to side. This was a challenge he did not fully appreciate when he decided to make this plan. So there's a lot of his veneers, planning out the pattern and cutting the veneers. There's it hanging. He starts the puzzle by sticking 8 pieces of veneer to a pattern, places another pattern on top. He staples all of the sides together, making kind of like a sandwich, and then cuts it. He cuts the bundle. He now has each piece of the pattern in each veneer. He sorts it, he mixes it, he matches it to a design he likes, and then he glues it down to a 1/4-inch plywood. He flips it and repeats with the opposite side pattern. If you want more details, and if you want to know about how to do veneer work, talk to him. He's very helpful. Then he bent 4 layers of veneer to make the, it's hard to see in this picture, but the leaf at the top, he bent 4 layers of veneer and glued them together, holding onto a form to create that shape. And then he encourages everybody who works it to put their initials on it and their time. And just to say it's a little 2 seconds about Chaz's veneer work, we have a puzzle that's been traveling around, and he did the veneer on one side of it, and there's been no chips, even after I cut it. So I cut the puzzle, he did the veneer work, and it's still in perfect condition. So how do you do that with veneer? I don't know.
Hey, Jess.
Hey there, everybody. Mark Cappitella, MGC Puzzles and Pinnacle Puzzles. I wanted to let you all know, if Pagey was here right now, she would be very, very happy. So, pretty impressive. Anyway, so my puzzle was I haven't done a puzzle exchange or a puzzle parley in 12 years. And so coming back, I wanted to do something a little bit more meaningful and tie it directly to Pagey. So, there we go. So this is a visit when I was visiting her in 2004. Bob Armstrong and Linda Chevelle were at the same visit that day. Right one in there. Here we go. Pagey cutting at her saw and her Hegner in her little cutting room, which is kind of off of her dining room, living room area. And this is a picture I took. So she had a round metallic dish laying on her porch out in the back of her farmhouse. And in it was floating all of these daylilies. And as a puzzle cutter, as many of you know, when you see an image that really strikes you, you're like, wow, that makes a great puzzle. So I paused with my camera and I decided to photograph it. And she was like noticing me and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, this is gonna make a really great puzzle someday. So this year, 20 years since I took this picture, I decided this is going to be the puzzle I make. And here it is coming off my printer. I printed it in the bigger size and some of the smaller ones. My saw top, as I'm trimming it. And I decided to make it as challenging as I could for the most part for the size, for the exchange. I didn't do anything too crazy. They said make it between 60 and 100 pieces or so. I think mine will averaged out to be about 115 pieces. So this is just kind of me cutting some of the pieces, and you can see how I'm scrolling it out. And there's a nice example sitting over there of a 10-inch version or so. And then that's kind of a zoom in. There's about 12, 13 voids in the puzzle. It's highly irregular edged. I split a ton of nubs, so those of you that love my split knobs, they're all over this puzzle. There's at least 80 examples of micro color line cutting, and I call a micro color line cut is when I do a color line cut that is shorter in distance than 1 inch of travel. And this thing is loaded with it. So, and I didn't do any figurals for the exchange, but the larger versions of the puzzle that I made, there are some figurals in it under the Pinnacle name. And that's what the puzzle looks like. So, in honor of Pagey.
Next up is Peter and Kayla.
Hello. So I'm Peter. Kayla's here this year, if you haven't met her yet, guys. So my puzzle was Helen 382. It actually was the puzzle I did for my latest drop. I was hoping to have another design, but we'll save that for next year. So this is the back. If you're familiar with my puzzles, sometimes the question can come up, how small is too small? This is right before too small. So if you've done my stamp puzzles, the piece size of this is about the same. I never intended to make one that was higher piece count than the stamps with that small of a piece, but one day I decided I might try it, so that's what this is. To make it more feasible to assemble, I wanted each piece to have more differentiation, even though it is somewhat of a grid. So if you look at each piece, it will be either a single, double, or triple interlocking feature, and they're all drawn by hand individually. So the chances of false fits is pretty low, and it's easier to identify because you can look for not just in or out, you can also look for different combinations. So it makes it kind of fun for the sorting process. It's a little different than normal. The lions are actually Scottish emblems, and I'll talk about the art actually. So, by the way, I never photographed my puzzles. I only video them, so I don't ever have photos. So I just have to like figure that out. So I just clipped different stills from the video. If you look at the design, it's actually an Ex Libris. If you look at the top, who all here collects Ex Libris book plates or has some in their collection? Anybody? Okay, it's one of my favorite things to collect. If you're not familiar, basically, people would have an illustrator, they would hire an illustrator to draw something that was meaningful for them and have their name in the bottom, and then they would put that in the front of every single one of the books in their library. So if you find old book collections, you'll often find that. But anyways, this was one of my favorites that I've ever found. And I actually waited until I could find a physical copy of it. So I can't remember what country I found it in, but so I own the original print. Do I have a picture of that? Yeah, it's like under it. Let's shoot it and get better. Yeah, there it is. So I don't know, the illustration meant a lot to me. It was one of my favorite illustrations I've ever found. So I used that, and then if you look at the center diamond, to challenge myself on this puzzle, I wanted to have like a new texture. So I figured out a way to like laser a brush effect. So it has kind of two colors if you look at it from different angles. So that was fun. And then anodizing is pretty tricky on this one because of the piece count. But yeah, the other thing I was going to say, if you look at the puzzle, it's over there, and if you pull out your phone, turn on your flashlight and like move it around, but you can look, all the different features light up at different angles, so it's kind of animated. Kind of hard to see without a video, but you can go play with your phone, it'll be fun. But I think that's basically it. Yep.
I bet y'all can figure out which one I am. Gabriel, she is not with us, but many of you know her because she is the marketing arm for the Puzzle Co., which is our business. There is a picture of this, and part of our fun things that we do is to create puzzles cut with water. Let me give you a little quick background. This is going to be in two parts. My speech is in two parts. 1977, a few years ago, I was a kindergarten teacher, and you will recall that at that point there was only two types of puzzles on the market. You had play school puzzles with knobs, and then you went to cardboard. Not a good thing for young children. But you have your summers off, so Philip became a puzzler, maker in wood, and they were fantastic from an educational perspective, and I knew nothing about marketing, and it failed. Fast forward to 1999, I got into the water jet business, so all of our puzzles are cut with water and are extremely precise. And that led to 2020, when a dear friend of mine called and said, Philip, you need to go back into the puzzle business. So I went back into the puzzle business with two understandings. Number one, Gabriel was going to help me. She's done a phenomenal job marketing. And number two, I said to her, if we're going to do this, we're going to try to create puzzles for everybody. Now stop and think about that just for a second. Puzzles for everybody. So what we have tried to do since 2020 is to create puzzles that will involve people who have not had the opportunity to puzzle before. So many of our puzzles are manufactured with texture for those who have low vision. In Braille, our first puzzle was in PVC so that you could clean it. Pandemic, right? Had to clean, be able to be clean. And then we grew into wood based on our experience at the Puzzle Jam South, because there was some incredible opportunities there. And so I went back and I said, can we do a puzzle in wood? And my production manager said, you bet. And with our process,
Nice.
it holds together. Very, very detailed. That's it. That's what we do. We print our own puzzles, we cut our own puzzles, and our focus is to make sure that people around the world have an opportunity to puzzle regardless of their background. That's the first part of it. Really not the important part. The second part, which is even more important from my perspective, is why we puzzle. Everybody here is part of the puzzle community, and we puzzle because it makes us happy. Amen? That's our goal, is to figure out how to make more people happy with something that is so dear to us that we need to tell everybody about it. Now, I'm going to use a term. How many people here are closet puzzlers? Don't answer that question yet. What I mean by that is, when you step away from it and you think about the joy that we have as puzzlers, the challenge, the ability, the emotional dedication that we have, the focus that we have, all of those things are extremely important to people and make all of us happy. When I ask you if you're a closet puzzler, I ask you because chances are you have a closet full of puzzles. And I'm going to ask you now if you can figure out how to give those puzzles to other people so that they can also puzzle and enjoy what we enjoy. So I'm going to ask the question again. How many of you all are closet puzzlers? Let's see hands of the people who are going to get out there and give those puzzles to people so that they can enjoy what we have enjoyed. Thank you all very much. I've enjoyed meeting everyone because everybody has such a positive attitude about puzzling. I look forward to meeting everybody.
Oh, and we have a video.
There we are. You can barely see the water, the stream of water, and you can barely see the cuts. And that's what we're all about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim Keiser, and I have been cutting puzzles for 10 minutes. Well, a little bit longer than 10 minutes. Maybe almost a year. And most of the images that and the puzzles I make are from old books. I love them, and I love puzzles, and it just feels like a great combination for me. So the image on my exchange puzzle is from this book, The Scroobius Pip, which was a nonsense poem unfinished by Edward Lear, then finished by Ogden Nash, published in 1968 with amazing illustration by Adrian Sager. So the image I picked is this whale tail, and I picked that because it calls for a shaped puzzle. It's one of my favorite things about a puzzle. It's got some opportunity for color line cutting, which is another one of my favorite things about a puzzle. And it's monochromatic, which you don't often see, but allows for a much more challenging puzzle. One of my other favorite things about a puzzle. I tried really hard to make pieces bigger than I usually make them. I actually succeeded, even though some people think I didn't. I did. And I didn't use a template or anything, they're all pre-cut, so if you see two of them, they don't necessarily look alike. I mean, in the border anyway. Biggest challenge I had while making these was that when I started, I had 2 copies of the book, which I had for years because I loved the images. And so I'm like, oh, look, eBay, they have a few, 8 books, they have a few, I paid, $5. Well, then I started needing more, and the first 2 puzzles I cut, I had to throw away, and I actually drove the cost up by my demand for the Scroobius Pip, and actually had to pay $20 for the last one that I bought.
Hi, I'm Jesse. Jessica can't be here tonight because we're here with our 1- and 3-year-old who needs to go to sleep before this presentation. So this year there was, total eclipse, and Rochester was actually one of the, it was right in the path of the eclipse. I heard that it was a little cloudy here that day, unfortunately. And once again, we couldn't go because we thought we were driving 4 hours to see something for 3 minutes with a 1- and 3-year-old is insane. But our friend, Jules, who works with us, was able to go up to Lake Placid. Lake Placid was a perfect place to view the eclipse. It was a beautiful day. He came back and he was like, this was amazing. It's unlike anything you've ever seen. We should make an eclipse puzzle. I was like, Jules, that's a terrible idea. The eclipse is just the absence of the sun. What's it gonna be, like a black dot? But we talked about it more, we sort of workshopped the idea. And so ultimately what we came up with was this idea of a double-sided puzzle that flips, and you can turn the sun into the moon. So it's sort of in these different sections, and each section can flip, and actually the entire cut is mirrored. There's one little figural piece, the sun. Detail shots, and so you can sort of eclipse it in different amounts as you would like.
Click once more.
Yeah. And then here's sort of a video, sound.
Hey!
You don't need that sound, it's just music. It sort of shows how the cut is appearing. And you can slowly eclipse it. This is a slightly different version of the video that it's just black on one side, so the version for the exchange is printed on both sides. One with the moon, one with the sun. you sort of get this like corona effect when you eclipse the puzzle, where you only see this sort of solar flares.
Now I am Mark, also taller. I sound like I'm from Georgia, so just pretend, okay? You don't want me to do a southern accent? So, Mark, this is what he wrote in what he sent me. He said, my exchange puzzle was born from complete desperation. For the longest time, I had no idea what my puzzle would be. Then Chris and Terra forced me to submit a title for my puzzle, and I decided on Toes in the Sand, thinking some beach scene would be easy to find and he could do something with that. Everything he found was either boring or already copyrighted or already done. Finally, in desperation, he decided that he would try his hand at AI. After all, while all the kids are having fun with it, why not he try it? So, first things first, he found it's not so easy. He literally quit counting after 78 attempts to find an image. And then he did some old-fashioned editing of the image to create the image that you see here. So he finally had an image he was happy with. So start cutting. But wait. In the back of his mind, he kept hearing Chris Yates saying on the Saturday Cutters call, have fun with it, but get out of your comfort zone. Okay, he checked that box already. He was using AI. But that really doesn't have anything to do with puzzling. So let him procrastinate a little more. What can he do that will take him further out of his comfort zone? How about making a 2-level puzzle? Yeah, that'll work. Only it just didn't seem right. Just 2 levels? Nah, he needed to add a 3rd one as well. And then, let's make 13 of those. Mission accomplished. Definitely out of his comfort zone. And may I mention that Mark has a full-time job also? Like a normal job and family, and he still managed to do all of this. So, definitely toes in the sand.
My presentation too.
Let me see. Get my hair a little bigger. Will that work?
Hi everyone, I'm Morganelli of Turning Tax's Plywood Puzzles. This is my first puzzle Parley, and it's been an absolute pleasure so far. When I heard about the Pagey Elliott Puzzle Exchange about a year ago, my first thought was, that's so cool, I definitely need to participate in this. My other thought was, I hate cutting the same puzzle twice, so am I going to have to cut 12 of the same image? So I spent the next year or so mulling over like cohesive concepts where I could tailor each puzzle to the individual recipient. And what I came up with was astral xylography, which roughly could be interpreted as the stars written into wood. So I started off the cutting process by asking every other recipient their birth date, time, and place, either of them as an individual or as their company, in the case of participants who are 2 people. From those numbers, I derived both a sun, rising, and a moon astrology sign, and each of those 3 signs defines a different aspect of the puzzle design. And for the archive puzzle, I used the birth date and place of the
the very first puzzle Parley, which I hope I got this correct. There are a lot of people in here who know much better than I, but yeah, from what I could tell, puzzle Parley was born on September 10th, 1994 in Concord, Massachusetts at around 10 a.m. So we'll start with the sun sign, which a little dyslexia up there on my part. But so I don't know much about astrology. Learned a little bit in the course of this project. Apparently your sun sign, which is what most of us think about when we say, what's your sign, defines your core identity. So for my puzzles, the sun sign defines kind of the macro asterism that I sculpt into the puzzle plane, where all of these stars are dropouts with straight lines connecting them, as well as a macro whimsy, a macro figural composed of between 5 to 10 individual pieces. So for the puzzle Parley, its sun sign is Libra, so there's the Libra constellation, figure of a Vestal Virgin. I wanted to make the lines connecting the stars as straight as possible so they'd be indistinguishable from edge pieces. And I had a lot of those to make, a lot of long, straight lines. I wanted to make them really quickly as well. So I came up with this literal piece of cutting-edge technology, just a bit of brass angle with sandpaper on the bottom to help it grip the puzzle playing surface, and then the blade very lightly rubs up against here to give you nice straight lines cut super quickly. You break blades using it, but the time saved in the cutting is worth the time spent changing the blade. So the rising sign defines one's external self, and I used everybody's rising sign to define 5 different figurals that I put into the puzzle. So 2 figurals kind of relating to the character represented by the constellation, as well as a figural representing the god representing the planet that rules the constellation. Apparently every constellation has both a flower and a number associated with it. So for the Parley, which is a Libra, we have the scales, the pound sign, Venus and her seashell, a rose and the number 6. And finally, the moon sign, which represents one's inner self. I both, as you can see on the bottom, did a little colored stencil using the color associated with that moon sign. And again, the avatar of the moon sign. I also applied glow-in-the-dark paint to those, so those will glow once illuminated by the sun. I should also mention I applied glow-in-the-dark paint to all of the edges of the stars and the straight lines connecting the stars. And I also, in each puzzle, incorporated what I call a parafigural. And I won't get into that, but people interested can talk to me about that offline because I feel like I'm going too long as it is. So yeah, here's the finished puzzle of the archive puzzle. As you can see, it's a quite challenging puzzle. The image isn't getting you much help. I mean, we have the black Scorpio, black is a color associated with Scorpio, so it's a little subtle. The other signs are all much easier to see. So one final thing I'll talk about. When I give or sell someone a puzzle, it's great that they solve them. What I would hate for happening to my puzzles is that somebody solves them and they just go into a closet for 10 years. So I like it when people either resell my puzzles, give them to other people, share them among friends, or ideally display them in their homes or workplaces as a piece of art. So I designed this puzzle. The dimensions are 8 by 10 inches, and I chose those because that's the perfect size to fit into the smallest float frame that I could buy from Michael's that perfectly fits a 1/4-inch puzzle. So I built this light box, and I only built one of them just for the archive puzzle, which you can see there. But it's a light box that once you frame the puzzle can slide in. The light illuminates the puzzle, and as you can see, this is kind of a poor photo, but the light coming through all the cuts kind of looks like a whole field of stars, which I find kind of cool. This was after the puzzle was in the sun, so you can see the Scorpio being the glow-in-the-dark paint being illuminated. I wish I could have made 13 of these light boxes and brought them all in my luggage, I really do, but everyone else gets a little card with a QR code that'll teach them how to make their very own light boxes. So you're welcome to the homework assignment. And that's it. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. This is also my first puzzle parlay. I just started cutting puzzles a little over a year ago. I saw a post on Scroll Saw Facebook page from Terra Rodgers saying something about wooden puzzles, and I said, what is that? I must get involved in that. So that's what I decided to do. Since this is the 30 years of having the puzzle parlay, I decided to do kind of a commemoration of it. So I borrowed the logo that Chris developed and designed, and asked him if I could use it. And I decided to try to make something a little bit different. I wanted to try some multi-layers to where they kind of can stand out and show off the 3 and the 0. And it was kind of challenging because I had to stack cut 1/4 inch and 2 8-inch wooden pieces and then glue them together in different ways. Sorry, I don't talk on microphones very often. So that I could get the different layers. So that is what I decided to do, and they were very challenging to cut as well. I ended up cutting 22 of them in order to get 13 of them that were good enough to give away. So it's fun because you can do it in different, do just the puzzle that way, or you can put it all together to get the different multi-dimensions going. And that just shows me putting the pattern on the puzzles. And I had to put a clear piece of laminate shelf liner over it so I could mark up on it and get the 30 on there. So the gluing process and the laminating and heat press and the different layers as they turn out. Different ways you can finish the puzzle out. That's my puzzle.
Hi, I'm Joe Seymour. I've been participating in these since 2010. I got to know Pagey. I met her in 1996 at a puzzle party and a combined AGPC thing. Or actually, it wasn't an AGPC or AGCA, it was Ann Williams doing a museum show. And I corresponded with Pagey for a number of years and had a chance to visit her at her home. Actually, at one of our parties, we had the special puzzle we made for Pagey. You know, after we had presented to her a couple years later, we had it on the show. And Melinda asked me to, I was invited by Bob Armstrong to go up and visit him in Maine. And since I was going that way, Melinda asked me if I would take Pagey's puzzle back to her on my way. And I did, and my wife and I went to visit her, and my wife at that time did not cut puzzles at all. She was afraid of the scroll saw, and Pagey just said, "Oh, my dear," grabbed her by the arm and took her back and sat her down at the saw and gave her a lesson on cutting. From Pagey's house, we proceeded up to Ann Williams' house to visit her. And I told Ann about how Pagey had given my wife a lesson, and Ann just grabbed a hold of my wife and took her down the basement, and she also gave her a lesson. So I think my wife doesn't cut puzzles. She's an artist and she works on other things, but she's one of the few people that actually got lessons from both Pagey and Ann Williams. Well, Peter and Kim both talked about books, so I guess I will add my association to books. I'm on the Friends of the Library back in Santa Rosa, California, and one of the 5 libraries that we support is the History and Genealogy Library. And the branch manager of the History and Genealogy Library has a collection of World War I Valentine's cards. Valentine's Day, sorry. Valentine, I guess it's an argument for people. But at any rate, this was one of her cards. She sent me a picture of it. It had a bit of damage on it, so I had to use, thanks to Conrad, I learned about paint.net, and I used paint.net to restore some of the worn places, and the bench over here, the legs of the bench was partial of that was gone, so I had to reconstruct it and so on. I don't think you can see it here, but while I was doing that reconstruction, I also, right there, I wrote PEPE 2024. So that's where I put my signature piece on each of these puzzles, and so I didn't have to write PEPE 2024 on the back of the piece. It's already on there in the artwork. So this is part, when I had them laid out, and like some of the other folks, I was a bit rusty. I cut Christmas cards, puzzles at Christmas time, and I hadn't cut for a while, and so I was a bit rusty. And so I ended up cutting 16 to come up with 13 that I wanted to give away. And laid them out. I put you can see here, I didn't put a lot of figures in there. There's my signature piece. There's a little sailboat on the young sailor, and there's a dowel on the young lady. And there's a stack of them, and it's going to be on display here. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Whoops. There we go.
And Bob, are you?
Bob around? There he is. Saving the best for last.
That a little too over. Decided to get over here with the camera. Okay, everybody hear me all right? Bob Walzer, I'm with Five Dogs Woodworking. The guidelines for this were to challenge yourself. Well, this is my second puzzle parley. The first one was in 2012. And one of the puzzles that I got in the exchange was from David with Fool's Gold, and it was a double-sided puzzle with butterflies on it, and I've always admired it. I've dabbled a little bit with double-sided puzzles. Camille here. Lady from France had emailed me. I cut a puzzle for her, and without telling her, I made it double-sided. I cut 3 of them to get one good one, and I still wasn't happy with it. So I figured for the challenge, I would try to make a double-sided puzzle. Coincidentally, about 5 years ago, I was looking for public domain artwork, and I was on the New York Metropolitan Museum's digital website, and they had this beautiful stopwatch. This watch was built in 1825 by a firm called, oh no, I forget, Moynier and Fives. I don't speak French, so I apologize. I thought this would be a great double-sided puzzle. 2 challenges. One, you have to align the 2 images. Well, if you're doing a square, when you're playing with Photoshop, you can put reference lines that match the edges of the image. Then when you flip it 180 degrees, you can extend those out with pencil. It's fairly easy to set up an alignment. Well, with this, how do you line it up? I'm getting feedback too. And the other thing I didn't realize is when they scan this, they're actually 2 different sized images. Just a little bit. And they also had some parallax. So where you scan something, and if you scan something else that's a ½ inch over, you get a little bit of distortion as well. So this didn't come out quite the way I wanted it to. So the first thing I did was, using what I've done before, is I made reference lines. Well, you kind of eyeball it where you think the points are. You do the same thing for front and back. You mount your image on the wood. You do that front and back. Everybody hear me all right without the microphone?
Yeah, hold it a little closer to your mouth.
Hello? Everybody hear me all right without the microphone?
No, use the microphone.
All right, I'm getting no's. If you look over here on that back side, you can see all the gray on the right. Using those reference lines didn't work. Because obviously I wasn't getting them centered. This is about also where I clued in that the images were kind of distorted in different sizes. One thing that does show is I did put 5 figureals in this little puzzle. It's a 6-inch diameter with a 2-inch diameter stopwatch on top. The images, the top one is a outline of a mantelpiece clock. The one at the 3 o'clock position is supposed to be a wristwatch. My wife looked at it and said, "What is that? Looks like a car key." So, all right. The one at the 9 o'clock is a hourglass. And for 6 o'clock, I was looking for old man time, but it ended up being the Grim Reaper. But the alignment wasn't working. So what I did next was I'd mount the front image, take it down to the shop. I assume this has a pointer. Nope, no I didn't.
Big button.
The big button in the middle. I cut out 4 locations, brought it back up to the house where my press is, took the back side, and then with a razor blade, cut out those same things, and then mounted that to the back of the puzzle. That solved my alignment challenge. Very tedious, not my favorite thing, the way it went. All right, the next challenge is to tear out on the backside. Everybody's going to say, "Oh, you just put a backer board on it." I didn't want to use a backer board. But if you look on the left side, that's a top image. I have a little handheld magnifier. You can see how clean the cuts are. Image on the right is where the blade's coming out the bottom, and it just tears and tears and tears. If wood, it's not a big deal. You can sand it off. 2 years ago, somebody, Shay Carmichael, wherever she is, there she is. She talked about putting transfer paper on the back and then peeling that off. There's no way I was doing that. My pieces are like spaghetti, so it would take 5 times as much time to pull the paper off as it does to cut the puzzle. So I experimented with blades. I went through a lot of blades. I too made a whole bunch of puzzles to get 13 that were acceptable. Believe it or not, the blade I ended up using is a Flying Dutchman. They call it a 2-way cut. It's got 2 teeth down, 1 tooth up, and that repeats the whole way up the blade. It actually gives you a pretty clean cut, front to back. It's not quite as smooth on top, but it was acceptable. All right. But then, I looked over, I was doing something else with the table saw, and I looked at my table saw and it said, 0 clearance insert. And when you're working with a table saw, you get a lot of tear out. And so people, they take a piece of wood and then they raise the blade through it so that the wood's exactly the width of the blade, so you don't get a lot of splintering on the back. And then I looked at my scroll saw. So then I said, how can I make a 0 clearance insert? So I took a foot square piece of brass, cut through it to the center, taped it down, and it's really helped a lot until you went to change the blade. And you can see I ended up, there was a little itty bitty hole there. The more I cut, the more the blade moved, the bigger the hole got. The other problem is the sharp edges on the brass started catching the puzzles. So that's not going to work because it's tearing the image. So the next thing I did was I took a refrigerator magnet that's a whiteboard, cut a hole in the center, put that over the brass, and then that's how I ended up cutting the puzzles. And here you can see the top side, and here you can see the bottom side is a whole lot better than that first picture I showed you. So that works. But about halfway through, I said, screw it, let's do some sacrificial wood on the back. So now I had this. I glued the second image on the back. And then I had a piece look like this. I took it down to shop, and with some hot melt glue, I took some 1/4 inch wood, used hot melt glue, and got the best results. That's about half of them were cut that way. Problem with that is, you think you've got a nice backer, but between the time you glued it and you go to cut it, one of them bends. So now you've got a gap and you've just lost whatever you tried to do. So now you've got to push down hard to make sure they're together. At the same time you're trying to spin it, and that sucks too. So, I will do more double-sided puzzles in the future, but I'll never do 13 at a time again.
Thank you, Bob.
Couple of other things. I like to experiment, so every one of these puzzles is different. I think I used about 5 different types of wood. I got a sampler pack of paper from Red River Paper in Texas. So a couple of you are getting metallic wood on the backside. Some of you are getting other kinds of wood too. So. Great.
Okay, that concludes the Pagey Elliott Puzzle Exchange for 2024. I'm not sure where Terra went, but I will thank her for organizing this effort. She did an amazing job. Seriously, give her applause. It took a lot of work. I put the slideshow together, but that is nothing compared to herding 13 cats. And 13 puzzle makers are like 1 million cats? Is that the ratio? Okay. I don't believe there's any other announcements for this evening. Thank you so much for being here at the Puzzle Parley. And make sure you vote before 5 p.m. tomorrow for Best in Show. And we just all saw all 13 puzzles for the exchange. The Puzzler's Choice Award is specifically designed to award whoever you believe has the best contribution to this year's exchange. And I think that'll do it. The casual puzzling room is open till 1. You can hang out here in the ballroom for a bit if you want. And we have so much programming that we're excited to share with you tomorrow on Saturday. That's going to do it for me. Thanks, everybody.